How we doing, light workers, light warriors, star seeds? How's your week going? Pretty chaotic and crazy times that are going on in the world right now, all over the world. Seem to be going what is called known as the dark night of the soul right now, and the deep spiritual crisis, a loss of life, meaning an inner breakdown, described as a phase of passive purification where persons feel distance from God to reach a spiritual maturity, involving the removal of spiritual comforts on personal learns to love purely rather than good feeling. Basically, the collapse of old life framework and identity may be triggered by major losses, traumas, exhaustion, or midlife shift, bringing heaviness and sense of impotency, numbness, deep questioning where old goals no longer matter. Seen as a painful transition that can lead to personal growth or spiritual awakening. Distinct from clinical depression through it can feel similar to severe emotional pain, still requiring professional, you know, requirements, an analyzer, a look. But we have the ability in our body with the clairs to, when we're getting to that point, you might be feeling tightness in your back. You might be finding that you're swelling up in the liver area, in the solar plex. Your heart, you're holding more in the higher upper chest, which most men tend to do when our bodies start, functioning or depressing. And our bodies are energy first and foremost. And we're carried in the meat suit, in our bodies, and that's when our energy gets tired of, moving the body, and we need deep rest. We need changes in our lives to, you know, find our way, through some of these times right now. Like I said, we've had volcanoes, and we've got earthquakes. We've got all kinds of people going, off the handle. We've got law enforcement tasering people in gas stations and setting the gas station on fire. And the people, we're not using our sensibilities, where we assess, reassess, and reassess some more. We've got, lots of jobs being lost, loss of income, loss of homes, loss of lives, people in our lives that have been going, constantly. We've got the Schumann resonance flying right off the handle, spiking. Schumann resonance, a frequency and a pulse in the heartbeat of the earth. And with the humans, as we always ground in, picks up all the different frequencies all over the world of where we are. And it's been very much so. As a lot of intensity with these wildfires, and I'm sure in many areas the maps around the world right now are painted almost red. And it's very traumatizing for many. Of the loss, and losing of hope at times, and what's in it, and how things are being situated and how things are being handled. A lot of people are being hit with oppositions at this moment in time in their areas that are going through a lot of this stuff. There's misunderstanding, misrepresentation on a lot of these situations, and there's also good people out there that are, willing and to help where it is. But situations like this can really cause pain and trauma, and start to sever cracks in the system. And sometimes that's awakening or a light, for a transition to open. And sometimes, when you get too far and you've been doing this for a very long time by yourself, and you realize that you can't do a lot of it anymore. You've been programmed and trained to, just be one and go out there and fight every fight that you possibly can. but eventually you need somebody, and you need to be able to hear and see and realize that you've been in a matrix for a very long time. And the trap is at times we go into a secondary matrix that just pulls us out of one event into another event, and it just keeps going in a loop. And eventually you're just like, I don't want to go in this loop any longer. And what's my options? Well, you're to put the stresses and the concerns and give it to the Creator God, and let Him carry some of this, to take some of the weight and some of the pressure, because you can't do all this by yourself at times. Some of the stuff is out of our control. We don't always have control in all the situations that go on, and understanding. There's been a real shift in the world, and a lot of sick, deranged situations that aren't making sense at this moment in time. We keep seeing, and as your spiritual growth or your awakening or your faith or wherever your level is at, that you're woken up, because millions have woken up in the last many years with a lot of stuff going on. The biggest one was 2020 and the COVID-19 and what happened to the world, and seeing this week here with a doctor, slash scientist, and the scientists were sitting at these tables, conducting these trials and medical situations and painting the fear, into the population, and watching, the disillusion, just I don't know, the remorse of no remorse over, somebody who's sitting there, that supposedly got these titles, doctor, scientist, which I don't see it. He must have got it from a Cracker Jack box, as far as I'm concerned, with all the plays that have been played. But to sit there, and plead the fifth and have nothing to say, and been asked 1,111 times on what this was about. 111 is the code and the gate and the key to open it. And this is the time right now that you're watching big exposures on the earth at this moment that are passing through. We watched this event in 2020 with people with masks going and putting some shot in their arm that they knew nothing about, and the people that were administrating it knew nothing about it. People running around telling everybody to do their part, put their mask on, locking everything down, attacking people, going after people, just literally watching your friends, your family, co-workers going off, not making any sense of what was going on, and you're trying to figure out which way to go. And all these people didn't know what to do, because they don't know what to do because they have to be told. They got to be told by television. And the common sense went out the window. Watched a lot of people fall into the snare and the trap of the situation that went on. And for all these individuals that orchestrated this at different levels of government, law enforcement, under the medical, and just in the blatantly so-called science, watching loved ones through windows that you couldn't get to, that weren't well, watching the passing of some. It traumatized many, your own health, like these masks. I sold masks a very long time ago, years ago. And a lot of what I watched in 2020, those masks did not do what they were supposed to do. It was just basically, as far as I'm concerned, just basically complying to something that most people didn't even know what they were complying to. They just went with it. But it caused division. It destroyed families. It just basically, you got thrown away, forgotten about. You're standing there in your moment. You may have lost your job. You may have lost your financial. You may have lost the roof over your head. You may have lost a business that you own. I know I did. Lost a lot of things in that time. And it just becomes that point where you're standing there going, well, where do we go from here? And the phone calls stopped, and people just didn't act appropriate in understanding what the mental anguish was for many people on the earth and what they were going through. Even the people that were lost in the sauce on the situation that was at hand, you know, and just watching, the upgrades, downgrades of the mental health. And so many people went off and got silent and quiet over the whole situation. And it just caused so much all over that, nothing looked recognizable any longer. 2, 3 years of lockdowns in some places around the world, some places that couldn't even get out, in rural towns, couldn't even get to the places you needed to get all the stuff that you wanted. But as all these events and all these times and these situations, and it gives the consciousness and Christ consciousness on the earth and the raising of the earth, and having things like the Schumann resonance, having the dark night of the soul, causes for a great shift, and where people go in and start looking at the inner situation going on. Because the last quite a few years, you've just watched the breakdown of society and more people missing, falling away, jobs, and where your life now is a little bit more practical. Your eating habits have changed, your lifestyle's changed, your friends group has changed, your marriage or, friendship or, relationships, man and woman, have changed. Divorces have gone on, you know, sale of properties. Many people have shifted out of the matrix, and some have got caught up into the secondary matrix of the situation that has happened. Many people are finding their growth and their way from it, and they're just not putting up with a lot of the, entourage any longer. They've opted out of a lot of the stuff. For many that opted out and didn't get into this, shot or, situation, and I know that it was not, and it's not something I wanted to see happen. And I didn't think that it would happen on the degree of the situations it did for many. It wasn't something that was that concerning, for what really came out of this thing. But what it did do was it caused so much more, people to fall apart through all of this and their health and everything. There was other pharma remedies and cures of healthy stuff that was on the earth that was provided for these times when these situations happen. And just to look up to the Lord God and give faith, and pray on, and get quiet for a moment, listen to, what the options were. But when things are screaming and blaring in our ears and people are coming after each other and acting in the, profound way that they are, these are the outcomes that we wind up getting ourselves messed up into. In these days now, like you said, I've been hearing a lot more that, people are feeling a lot more alone these days, but you're not really alone. It's just that your life isn't putting up with a lot of the shift anymore, that's coming out, and you're not putting up with it. You've realized that a lot of this stuff was never for any of us. And it's just been a form of control for many, just to keep them tight in a populace and keeping them in a program that's been going on for a very long time. That was never intended for you. Intended was to have, rising of consciousness, looking after your temple, your health, looking after your liver, looking after your heart, looking after your inner body and your outer body, and finding that happiness and that peace, and these city constructs and everything else got really well built up and keeping people locked up and away from the, outer season of life, just like the times, where you want to get into the wilderness, or you want to get up on a mountain, you want to go to the beach, or you want to get out there in, the environment of, nature, You know, grounding on the lawn, grounding on the sand, going for a swim, salt bath, you know, getting out in the ocean. You know, many different things there that we require to bring our, you know, heighten our senses, you know, and open up our, you know, third eye or gland and to be more aware. And this is what we've seen since 2020, that a lot more of waking up and realizing that there was some real silly stuff that's happened here, some dumb shit. You know, and it's still going on right now. And like I said, right now, we got all these other events and stuff happening. We got these fires all over that have been set, that are being maintained. People's health, you know, we still got air quality issues. You know, it's not good for the respiratory, nor your heart, nor your blood flow. And, you know, and for many right now, they're going through in these areas that, you know, this has happened. And I know firsthand myself, you know, I had a place a few years too that got burnt down, and it's not too far away. There's another fire going on again. We've been getting more and more of these seasons. You know, last 15 years has become prevalent that these seasons are a mandatory season in time, you know, in the summer. And it always kicks off around the mid-July and into late August, you know, and it just goes on, and it's maintaining. And it's just downright, you know, frivolous, and downright, you know, my words, is demonic. Because most of these people don't understand what this is doing. You know, we've lost a lot of equipment. We've lost a lot of people. You know, we've lost the sensibility and why this is happening all the time. You know, I got people asking me about the animals and what's happening in the forest, what happens to them. Well, it's like everything else that happens. You lose your house, you lose your family, you know, you lose your environment. And it's not very becoming, and it's very discomfortable, especially for animals out there that are helpless in these situations, just like humans are in their environment of their own, you know, areas that they live in, and losing it. It is something else. So as much as people are going through the trauma in these situations, so are the animals. And it's very, you know, it gets right to the heart, and it hurts to have to witness and see this. We have to come to better, you know, practices and better understandings that this is not warranted and not called for. And by now, there should be enough of a plan of no plan to have this going on all the time, because that's what it is. Got these data centers, AI, you know, I keep hearing about the lack of water. I keep hearing about the, you know, how they want the minerals in these places, you know, our logs, our lumber, all the different things that are for resources that we got so much of, but it's gotten foolish. Listening to some other scientist, doctor slash, talking about by 2028 here that there'll be no water again. It's like every time I turn around, there's no water. Well, there's plenty of water all around. Well, that's right, because most people that watch the news watch the mainstream, you know, clown world, bread and circus all day long, blaring about the stuff, while they sit inside their homes, look inside a box, but they never go outside. They never get out to a beach. They never get out to a pool, never get out to a lake, anywhere where there's a body of water. It's water all around us. But it's funny how some of these fires and everything else that have happened recently, that, you know, that they shot the tap off, you know, blamed it on basically the fact is drought and everything else. Well, I'm still trying to figure out why the trees are so green in the fire zones, why they're still standing and the houses are missing. It's a question to be asked. But this is the part with going through these times, and, you know, right now we are going through, you know, another, you know, dark night of the soul event right now, another greater awakening, and more people are going through this. And as they go through this, you know, these types of situations happen. It wakes up many, and unfortunately some do fall in this, you know, and it's just unfortunate at times when that does happen, you know. But there's been so much to go on that we have, you know, around us right now. And like I said, you're just seeing all the different things that are keeping the fear and keeping the conscious and keeping, you know, it low, and trying to keep you in this program all the time of being feared and all this stuff. And it's not to fear. There is a better plan. There is a better path and a better option for so many. But tough times make tougher people in these situations. Like I said, since 2020 when the division, and watching relationships, and where men and women are at today, and the, covert narcissist and the people still pulling other people down and still pulling them in other directions, and the stuff that's been going on online with men and women, and, it's just, there's no more, love and respect. There's no unconditional love. And that's basically the frequency and the pulse of the earth right now that's happening, and for the chosen that have, risen in this time, are feeling it, seeing it. You see it, like I said, in the Schumann, what's going on. We have the 888 Lionsgate portal coming in, and that's a clearing and a cleansing and a time to, kick out a lot of the old, break down a lot of the old programs and situations in your life, part of the dark night of the soul. We have a moon coming up and an eclipse, and so many different situations right now that's, sending the earth into, upheaval. But this is where the change is needed, and the time is now to, work through some of the stuff in your own personal life. And even if there's nobody here and there's no friends to talk to, you're not alone. There's many people out here that are exactly the same right now, but it's like-minded souls today, ones that, function with you, and there's a lot of fake, spiritual gurus out there right now and spreading all this garbage and crap that's going on in these days, and it's just, this is where, you've got to find your own grounding, your own balance, and work through some of the stuff that you've had in your lifetime that's happened, and let go of a lot of it, and look at some new shifts in lives, and, and create a new reality, a new timeline, manifest in, something newer. Probably since a child you realized that there was other things you wanted to do, but you got, driven to grow up a lot faster and put a lot of that off to the wayside, forced into some of this, programming that we've had most of our life. And now it's time that, there's some of these anomalies that are happening that, if you've got this inner shaking and questioning and, exploring, there is many good channels out there to, help you, along the way. But it's all about inside, letting go of a lot of the stuff that doesn't serve you, and making that change. And if it's time, walk in that direction, and don't worry about what other people got to say. It gets to a point when we're sitting here pleasing and honoring every other situation, or get dragged in, or the guilt or the fear. It just doesn't become the becoming of anybody. It's just downright, destroys, you internally and yourself. And it keeps you basically in one of these loops, and it doesn't give you the freedom and the identity of yourself, and that's where, the free will, and when other people are treading on your free will, and that's not to be. You want to be able to think for yourself, and, live a greater and prosperous and healthier life. And that's what I've given on the earth here, for many to have, and have that freedom, and to take that walk. And I know it's a scary step, but there's many different ways to go about and do it. But to get you outside of this system that isn't serving you, because it is collapsing, and society is collapsing, and humanity is collapsing. This is a full breakdown that's happening right now. But for many, I would like many to, realize that when these communities and these situations and these type of things are happening now, is that we can't put up with this type of garbage and crap any longer that's happening, especially in these forests. And this has got to stop. And for some of you, don't understand. But there is great, evil working that's going on out there in these situations. And it's not okay. And who are they? Just like this doctor that's refusing this week, to talk about what happened in 2020. It's the refusal of people to pay attention to what's happening in all these other situations that's there. There's many stuff inside Bibles, Ethiopian Bible. There's many great people on YouTube and other channels. And there's also yourself to sit quietly and start asking your inner self, your inner soul. Once you start breaking down and bringing a bunch of light, you'll start knowing what's the right and wrong. But in society, we cannot have this any longer and have this destruction that's happening all over the world right now. Because as it is, the Antichrist is working very hard at this moment to do what he will, to keep the control of the people in the earth. I want these fires put out. I want more people to rise, rise inside themselves. This is the time right now to do this. And like I said, with the Lionsgate portal coming in, I have the 4 horsemen. They're racing around the earth right now. It's the fire horse season. So many things that are happening at this moment in front of our eyes to open up that third eye and let the light in. Let the inner come in to work and work through you and with you. So if you like this, share, comment. I have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and a few other channels there. But yeah, we are going through some crazy, crazy times here. And I'm here to help and lead and teach and break through some of this nonsense that's been going on in the earth that people don't seem to understand about. And we're here to wake up and wake the nation up and rise up. So have a blessed, wonderful day. Shine your light. Love you very much. We'll see you on the next one.